He wasn't just my brother anymore. He murdered my trust. He took something precious, something meant to build a future, and used it to feed his own greed and recklessness. My own brother, Mark, stole $700,000 from me. $700,000. That was mine, left specifically for me. He's not my brother anymore. He's just Mark, the man who stole everything. My name is Emily. This story is about an inheritance. It was money that should have been a gift, a helping hand from someone I loved deeply. Instead, it became a poison that infected my family, turning my closest relationship into ash. It's about how something good turned into a source of terrible pain and conflict, all because of greed and betrayal. It started with Grandma Rose and the house she left behind. Grandma Rose was everything to me after my parents died when I was young. She was a warm, steady presence in a world that suddenly felt cold and uncertain. She raised Mark and me in her small, comfortable house on Elm Street. It wasn't fancy, but it was filled with love, the smell of her baking, and the sound of her gentle humming. That house held all my good memories. It was the only stable thing I had. Mark is 5 years older than me. Growing up, we weren't just siblings. We were each other's anchors after our parents were gone. He was the big brother who taught me how to ride a bike in the park down the street, holding the back until I finally found my balance and sped away, laughing. He was the one who checked my closet for monsters under the bed after a scary movie. He always cheered loudest at my school plays, even if I only had one line. I remember one time I fell out of the old oak tree in Grandma's backyard and broke my arm badly. I was crying and scared, stuck up high. Mark climbed up slowly, talking to me the whole time, even though I could see he was scared too, and helped me carefully get down. He always looked out for his little M. After Grandma Rose took us in, he was the one who made sure I did my homework, who sat with me on the porch swing and just listened when I missed Mom and Dad so much it hurt. He seemed responsible, protective. I trusted him with my life back then. As we got older, things changed a bit, as they do. He got married, had kids, my little nieces and nephews I adored. I loved visiting them, playing with the kids. Mark started his own business, a small construction firm. He seemed to be doing well, always talking about providing for his family. There were times he borrowed small amounts of money from me or Grandma, saying his business had cash flow issues, but he always paid it back quickly. It seemed normal, just family helping family get by. All through this, I always dreamed of opening my own bakery. I loved helping Grandma Rose in the kitchen, the feel of the flour on my hands, the magic of turning simple ingredients into something delicious that made people smile. I would spend hours sketching out ideas for pastries and cakes, imagining my own little shop with a red awning and tables outside. That bakery wasn't just a dream, it was my plan, my escape route to a life I could build for myself, a way to create my own stability and joy. Grandma Rose knew about my bakery dream. She knew how much that house meant to me, the memories it held, and the potential it represented. When she passed away 2 years ago, she left the house to me in her will. Her lawyer explained everything clearly. The house was valued high. The instruction was to sell it, and the money would be split. Half for me, half for Mark. It was her way of giving us both a secure future, a chance to really get ahead. My share was specifically $700,000, based on the expected sale price. Mark's share was the same. It felt incredibly generous, like a final, loving hug from Grandma. When she told us, she looked right at us and said, "This is for your futures. Emily, you can finally start your bakery. Mark, you can make sure the kids go to college without debt. Promise me you'll use it wisely and always help each other." We both promised. Mark even hugged me, saying, "We're finally going to be set." It felt like a joint victory, a shared dream made possible by Grandma's love. When it came time to sell, Mark was insistent that he handle it. "You don't need the headache, Em," he'd said. "This market is tricky. I know the real estate guys. I'll make sure you get the best deal, and I'll handle all the confusing stuff." He made it sound like he was doing me a huge favor. I was still grieving, and the thought of dealing with real estate felt overwhelming. I was so caught up in planning my bakery, looking at ovens and mixers, picturing my grand opening, that I gratefully handed it over. I gave him access to the necessary documents, signed what he told me to sign. I trusted him completely, just like I always had. The house sold faster than we expected. It went for a little over $1.4 million. Great news! Mark called me, excited. The papers are signed, Em. The money should be processed and transferred in a week or two. I was thrilled. My bakery dream felt closer than ever. I started looking at possible locations, crunching numbers, feeling a sense of hope I hadn't felt in a long time. But a week passed. Then 2. No money in my account. I called Mark. Hey, just checking on the money? He was breezy. Oh yeah, the bank stuff is slow. You know how it is. Paperwork delays. Should be any day now. I didn't worry too much at first. Banks can be slow. Another week went by. Still nothing. I called again, a little more concerned. Mark, seriously, is everything okay? It's been 3 weeks. He sounded annoyed this time. Relax. It's a large sum. These things take time. Stop bothering me about it. I'll tell you when it's in. His tone was sharp, not like him. A little knot of worry started to form in my stomach. Weeks bled into months. Mark stopped taking my calls as often. When he did, his excuses got weaker, more unbelievable. Technical issues. The buyer's bank messed up. Legal holdups. My worry turned into a cold dread. Something was very wrong. This wasn't just a delay. This felt deliberate. The betrayal started creeping in slowly. A sickening feeling that the person I trusted most, the person who had always looked out for me, was hiding something terrible. That $700K wasn't just late, it felt like it was gone. I remember one phone call clearly. I was crying, desperate. Mark, please, just tell me what's going on. I need that money. I need to start my life. Grandma meant for me to have this. He snapped, his voice cold and hard. Stop being so dramatic, Emily. The money is coming when it's coming. Do you think this is easy for me? Just be patient. Patient? I'd been patient for months while he fed me lies. That was the moment the last bit of trust crumbled into dust. He wasn't looking out for me. He was hurting me. He was hiding something huge, something that had taken my $700K and my future with it. I stopped calling him after that. The sick feeling in my stomach hardened into a cold, determined resolve. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being stolen from. I didn't know exactly what had happened, but I knew Mark wasn't going to tell me the truth. I decided I needed help, but not the kind that would involve loud accusations or family arguments yet. I wanted facts. Hard, undeniable facts that he couldn't talk his way out of. I found a private investigator online. His name was Frank, a quiet man with tired eyes, but a reputation for getting results in tricky situations. I met him in a neutral place, a quiet coffee shop far from our neighborhood, and told him everything, my voice trembling as I explained the missing $700K and my brother's strange, evasive behavior. I gave him all the details I had about the house, sale, the lawyer, the buyer, and Mark's business dealings that I knew about. Frank listened patiently, asked sharp, specific questions that showed he understood, and agreed to take the case. It cost me a significant amount of my meager savings. From waitressing, but I knew I had to do it. I couldn't let this go. The waiting was agonizing. Every day felt like an eternity. Frank would call with small updates, chasing down leads, digging through records. He looked at bank statements related to the house sale, property records, and Mark's business filings. He even did some discreet surveillance to see who Mark was meeting with and what he was doing. The picture he started to paint was darker and uglier than I had imagined. Then came the call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I have it, Emily, Frank said, his voice flat and grave. It's worse than you thought. Much worse. He laid out the details he had uncovered, piece by painstaking piece. Mark had received the full $1.4 million from the house sale months ago, just like he'd said, but he hadn't split it. He hadn't put my share aside in a separate account or anything safe. He had immediately transferred the vast majority of it into his business accounts, but not for legitimate business expenses that would help him grow. Frank had found records of huge, frequent cash withdrawals shortly after the money landed in his accounts. He found concrete evidence of large debts from gambling. Not small bets, but serious, ruinous amounts. He found emails and documents showing Mark had sunk a massive portion of the inheritance, easily over $500 of the money that included my share, into a highly risky, possibly fraudulent investment. scheme with some partners who had very questionable reputations in the city. The rest of the money, Frank believed it had been wasted, gambled away to try and win back losses, or used to pay off other pressing hidden debts Mark had accumulated. The $700K meant for my future, meant to fulfill Grandma Rose's wishes, meant to build my dream bakery, was just gone. Squandered on addiction and bad decisions. The truth hit me with a force that knocked the air out of my lungs. It felt like all the air left the room. I sat there in my tiny apartment kitchen, staring at the reports Frank sent over, the numbers and facts blurring through my tears. My brother, my protector, he hadn't just borrowed or misplaced it. He had actively, deliberately taken my entire inheritance and thrown it away on gambling and scams. The betrayal was absolute. It wasn't a mistake or poor judgment. It was a conscious, selfish choice that destroyed my future as easily as if he'd burned the cash in front of my face. I didn't scream. I didn't cry hysterically for long. A cold, hard resolve settled over me, replacing the shock and pain. I wasn't going to get my money back through pleading with Mark or confronting him like I had before. He was clearly too deep in his own problems and lies, and involving the police felt messy. It would drag Grandma Rose's name and the whole family through a public scandal, likely ruin any chance of ever having a relationship with my nieces and nephews, and maybe still not get me the money back, only send Mark to jail, which felt like a different kind of loss I wasn't ready for. I wanted justice, but on my terms. I wanted him to face consequences that truly fit his crime, the destruction of his carefully built facade of responsibility, success, and integrity. I wanted him to lose what he valued most, just like he had made me lose what I valued. My quiet. Revenge began the next day. I didn't go to Mark. There was no point. I went directly to the people Frank had identified, the business partners Mark had invested with, and the key creditors he owed significant amounts of money to from his gambling and failing business. Frank had given me their contact information. I compiled all of Frank's findings into a clear, concise package of undeniable evidence. Copies of bank statements showing the origin of the funds, investment documents linking it to the inheritance, communication records, proof of gambling debts. I contacted Mark's business partners first. I arranged a short professional meeting and calmly presented the documents. I showed them without emotion that the huge sum Mark had invested with them wasn't from legitimate business profits, as he must have claimed, but was stolen inheritance. Money directly linked to his serious gambling debts and financial instability. I didn't make demands or threats. I just presented the facts and let the chilling implications sink in. Their faces went pale as they looked at the proof. An investment source linked to theft and problem gambling? That spelled massive trouble for their own reputations, their business legitimacy, and potentially serious legal exposure. Next, I contacted the creditors Frank had found, the individuals and companies Mark had borrowed significant amounts from and had been actively avoiding, feeding them excuses. I showed them the same evidence, explaining clearly that Mark had received a large inheritance specifically meant to be shared, but had gambled and wasted my significant portion instead of using it to pay them back. I let them know about his failed investment and his lack of legitimate funds. Again, I made no demands. I just provided the irrefutable information they needed. I also discreetly shared some of the less legally sensitive but reputation-damaging information, like the extent of his gambling and the questionable nature of his investment, with a few well-connected people in the local business community that Mark dealt with regularly. Nothing illegal, just enough to make them question his integrity, his judgment, and his financial stability behind the scenes. The effect was swift and devastating for Mark. His business partners immediately cut ties, pulling out of the venture, and threatening legal action to recover their own funds Mark had mishandled and potentially put at risk. The creditors, now fully aware of his deceit, his lies, and the vanishing inheritance that could have paid them back, hounded him relentlessly, legally and otherwise. His reputation, which he guarded fiercely as the cornerstone of his business, and social standing, was utterly ruined in the local business world almost overnight. People stopped taking his calls. Business deals he had pending fell through. His clients started leaving for more reliable firms. The pressure on him became immense, coming from every direction. He had to start selling off assets, liquidating, everything he could. His cars, his property, his business equipment, just to try and appease the most aggressive creditors and lawyers breathing down his neck. He lost his business, his standing, his good name, his financial stability, even eventually his family home, all in rapid succession. He tried desperately to contact me during this time, a flood of furious, begging, and threatening messages. He blamed me for everything. I never answered. There was nothing left to say. I didn't need to. My revenge wasn't about getting the money back directly from him. I knew that $700K was likely gone forever into the pockets of creditors and the void of his gambling. It was about dismantling the life he had built on lies and stolen dreams, watching from a distance as his carefully constructed world crumbled piece by piece felt powerful. Not sweet, exactly. The pain was still there, but it was a sense of justice served. He took my future. I took his. I won. He lost. Not just money, but everything he valued and identified himself by. The aftermath was quiet, at least for me. Mark was dealing with the chaos he created, the consequences of his actions. Our family tie was severed, probably permanently. The pain of his betrayal will always be a scar, a deep wound that reminds me of how even the strongest bonds can break under the pressure of greed and addiction. Losing the $700K was a massive setback. It changed my plans completely, forcing me onto a much harder path. My bakery dream felt crushed, impossible for a long time, but being free from the constant anxiety, the lies, and the toxic, draining presence of his deceit was worth more than I could measure. I grieved the loss of my brother, the one from my childhood who climbed trees to save me, but I accepted that he was gone, replaced by someone selfish and destructive. The man who replaced him was someone I didn't know and couldn't trust, and letting go was the only way to save myself. I had to start over from almost nothing, with only my waitressing job and my sheer will. It was hard, really, really hard. Long. Hours, aching feet, constant worry about bills. I took on extra shifts whenever I could. I saved every single penny. It wasn't the quick, exciting start the inheritance would have given me, but there was a different kind of strength building inside me, the strength that comes from relying entirely on yourself and proving you can survive anything. I went back to my bakery sketches, not as distant dreams anymore, but as concrete plans I would work towards, slowly, deliberately, step by painful step. I started baking small batches of muffins and cookies for local cafes on the side, just to get my foot in the door, to keep the dream alive in some small way. It was a tiny start, but it was mine, built on my own effort, not on anyone else's promises or gifts. This whole terrible experience taught me that you can't always blindly trust blood. It taught me the harsh value of money and the even greater value of relying on yourself. It taught me that sometimes the most powerful form of justice isn't found in courts or loud confrontations, but in quiet, strategic action aimed at the core of what the betrayer truly values. Mark valued his image, his business, his control. I took all of that away, not for money, but for justice and my own peace. I chose my own path forward, one free from the weight of false expectations, broken promises, and a family bond that had become toxic. I am building my life now, piece by piece, on my own terms, with my own hands. And that, in itself, feels like winning the most important victory of all. This journey was painful. Sharing it feels vulnerable. But if my story of betrayal and finding the strength to fight back and rebuild resonated with you, if it gave you even a little bit of hope or courage, please show your support. It helps me know I'm not alone in sharing these difficult truths and that these stories of overcoming challenges matter. Please take a moment to hit the like button on this video. And if you want to hear more stories of finding strength when you feel broken, stories about resilience and moving forward, please subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me as I continue to build my life. One story, one step at a time. Thank you for listening.